Hello everybody. We're going to do a little lesson on 1-point perspective. I'm going to approach this as a lesson for beginners. I will be labeling using certain measurements, but depending on your experience and abilities, you may change any of this. But as a class, we will do and follow the measurements that I'm doing because I'm a teacher. Right now I'm teaching, this is my 7th year teaching 6th grade. Before this, I taught for 30 years at the high school, arts 1 through 4. And before that, 5 years at an elementary level, 5th grade level. And before that, 2 years at a private school. So these are things that I've learned through the years in trying to teach perspective, drawing, coloring, and many other things. Perspective, the 1-point perspective we're going to do today is using 9 different objects. And we will see the illusions of having a bird's eye level, and worm's eye level. The bird looking down. The horizon eye level is us standing at the center. And then the worm crawling on the ground looking up. Now these vanishing points can be anywhere in your picture, and you can have more than one vanishing point. It doesn't have to be one. And the reason that it's important to understand perspective, that's when we start learning, or we want to learn, we have to understand the distortions that take place and how objects might look from where we're standing, in which direction we're looking at. The idea of the perspective, linear perspective, has been around forever, but in the 1400s, during the Renaissance period, if I'm not mistaken, Brunelleschi and Alberti, architects, engineers at that time, architects, came up with the idea. They found a way of illustrating this, because otherwise, how do you teach linear perspective? So thanks to them, they're credited for coming up with us the technique of using the vanishing points. So let's get started. But before we get started, I want you to understand again that this is a lesson. I want students to follow the measurements that I will be using here for learning purposes. Those of us that are more advanced, we can use any measurements we want, any size we want. But in our case, we're going to keep it controlled, because as a teacher, you have to see if the students are understanding, and that you can have something to correct them or grade it and so on. I also like to draw a measure, but a measure out of border. Everything is going to be ruler. And we're going to use a horizontal position. And as a teacher, we want to, especially at 6th grade level and with our times now, is that we want to bring in not only drawing and linear perspective, but also math, a little bit of math and grammar and all these other things to reinforce that all of it are interconnected. Okay? But before we get started, we need to understand the rulers. These rulers are just rulers that you can find at home, very inexpensive. Sometimes they're given away. But we need to understand where the measurement starts. Let's take this one, for example. This one here only has the inches, the standard measurement, the imperial measurement. The inch, these kind of measurements, we're the only major country that practices this. The rest of the world uses the metric. Okay, and if I'm not mistaken, there's 2 little small countries somewhere in Africa that also use this. But in any case, it's a little more complicated, but anything can be learned. Anything can be learned. I used to teach my high school kids the inch, half inch, quarter inch, eighths, 30 seconds, 64s, and so on. So this ruler, the measurement starts here at the edge of the ruler, in this case with this ruler. So that's one of the things that we have to look at. And also we have to be careful that we're using the measurement that you're being asked. In this case, we're not going to use the inches. Another one here is a metal ruler. Now this ruler does the starting over here at the inside of the ruler, not at the edge like what we just saw. Now I'm showing you the metric side now. The opposite side is the inches. This is a little more sophisticated for printing, for graphics. So this ruler, the measurement starts here. Some rulers will have a 0 on the first marking. This one does not. But now we look at this next ruler here. This one does not start at the inside, but starts at the edge. It's the same measurements. It's the same thing. Okay? So we have to be careful with it. Then I have this plastic ruler. This plastic ruler also begins at the edge, just like this metal one here. Okay? And this one goes all the way to 30 centimeters and 5 millimeters, 35. And then this ruler here begins in the inside. So we have that one beginning in the inside, and it starts with a 0. And then this one starts at the edge of the ruler. But they're all the same. Okay? Some of them again have the standard measurement on the opposite side. I'm going to be using this ruler. Okay? Now, and all rulers are different lengths. For example, this one here goes to 405 millimeters. Okay? Or this one here goes to 46. Okay. So now centimeters, 45 centimeters and 46 millimeters. And this one, I think I said it wrong. This one goes to 10, 20, 30, to 400 millimeters. Okay. So here we have those there. Another thing that I want to mention is that all the materials that I'm using, we're not going to use fancy pencils. Just regular pencils that you can find at home, regular rulers that you can find inexpensively, and we're going to use that. I'm going to be interchanging between rulers. Okay, let's get started. To get started first, we are going to set a centimeter, and before I start, I also want to let you all know that before I start using the measurements, I have spent already about 2 weeks practicing, teaching it, the difference between the centimeters and the inches. At 6th grade level, they have a lot of problems understanding, but once they get the hang of it, it's really nice to see what kind of work they do. This is 6th graders again. Fantastic work that they end up doing at the end. So here we go. We start from the edge and we're going to go 1 centimeter all the way around. So I make a mark. All of my lines are going to be dark for me so that you can see it on the screen. Okay? So I'm going to, and I want us to get used to finding one point, either point, and putting your pencil and at it, putting a little pressure. Your ruler's not going to go anywhere, and you find the other dot over here at the bottom, and I draw my line all the way across. Now you'll notice I went off. Well, we don't want that. Let's go ahead and let me do it. So we need to pay attention. So that means also that we have to keep our pencil nice and straight up. Okay? Don't angle it when you're drawing your line because sometimes it'll go underneath the ruler. Also, we need to keep pretty good pressure on the ruler. Okay? So now, we have a centimeter border. And erasing, we want to hold our pencil and make sure that your eraser is not old and dry because otherwise it's going to smear your paper. We also want to avoid erasing a lot because it'll damage the paper fiber. When we come do value work or coloring, it's going to look different. So now that we have that border at centimeter, we're going to go ahead and write our name. We write our name. first and last name, so we'll know who he belongs to. Then we write the date the assignment is given. Then we write the period. In my case right now I have 10 periods, so I have to know which period makes it easier for me. So you write the class period number. Then the subject is art. And I usually, I'm in that habit of writing that there, even though it's an art class. And I have all art classes, but I've had arts 1 through 4 in different periods and levels. Then we're going to write the title, the main title. The main title is going to be a 1 point. Perspective. Now, if I go kind of fast, you can always go back, okay? 1 point perspective, 1. We're going to call it 1 because there's going to be several that I'm going to try to teach so that we can learn and get better. And not that you know perspective doesn't mean that you are just going to be drawing things in proportion to your vision from where you're standing. Once you learn everything, and as much as you can deviate and become an abstract expressionist, pointillist, you name it, whatever style art is in session or in season for in our times. So 1 point perspective, number 1, okay? And we're also going to use line, and we're also going to use hues. Now, hues is another name for color. As the teacher, again, we want to teach different things as we're going along. Another thing too is that for students to practice their right and left, this is going to be the left side. This is going to be the center. And this is going to be the right side. Okay, so now that we are there, we can start. We know whose paper it is, what date it was given, what is the assignment, the major point up here, the title, major title, and then the period, the art, and the left, center, and right. Now, I'm going to be moving the ruler around for teaching purposes, but those of us that have practice and know our ruler, we don't have to be moving our ruler all the way around, okay? But we're gonna do a 1 centimeter over here on top, line up, make sure that your ruler goes all the way across. In this case, it's long enough that it will go across. I'm gonna go up on the other side so I can see the dot. Okay, put pressure on my ruler, start from the left. You do it lightly, I'm gonna draw it dark. Then I go to the bottom, again I give a 1 centimeter. I go to the opposite side, 1 centimeter. I place my pencil. I find my other dot. It goes all the way across. Put pressure on the ruler. Draw your line. Now I'm going to go to the right side. So we go to the right side. We're going to measure 1 centimeter again. Top and bottom. Now we need 2 dots so that we can make a straight line. Because otherwise, if we only do it on 1, we're not going to make sure, we're not sure if the line is straight. Now, if we had a T-square with 1 dot and get your T-square, and it'll make it easier. But this is a learning process. Okay, so now I'm going to have, like I said, several objects. In this case, we're going to have 9 squares. And these 9 squares are going to be 3 by 3 centimeters. So I'm going to set 3 there. Over here, 3. I'm going to line up my ruler. Okay, draw my line across lightly. Lightly, I'm drawing it dark so you can see it. I go to the bottom again and I do the same thing. From the borderline up, 3. I go to the opposite side, 3. Place my pencil on the dot, look for the other dot, draw my line. There you go. Okay, and now I'm going to set a center space of 3 centimeters. We can do it different ways. We can measure it to find the center. We can measure it. In this case, it's 13 and a half. So maybe we can go ahead and make it easier without using measurements. We line up our ruler from the top left corner to the bottom right corner. Line up your ruler. In this case, it does reach. Now, let's say if you say, well, my paper's a little longer, it doesn't reach. You can get two rulers, okay, and you can tape them together. Make sure they're nice and even. Here are the edges. And then you can use that to give you the center point. And then you can take the tape off. So lightly, then I do the opposite thing on the opposite side. I do the same thing. Oh, and I'm also using just regular typing paper. Any regular typing paper for our purpose. It's not art paper, it's not artwork, because these are just practices. Okay, so here, if you are going to erase, make sure, I got a fancy brush. If you don't have a brush, either blow it off or make sure your hands are clean. So now we have found the center. This is our magic point. Now the dots should not be very large because they, in actuality, in reality, they don't exist. But we use it for us to guide ourselves. And we're going to call this point VP. So what is VP? VP, we're going to write it up here. VP equals vanishing point. Vanishing point. Okay? And the lines that we're going to draw are going to be vanishing lines. Okay? So now, we have that. Now that we have the center, well, we want to center a 3 centimeter space. Now, this is where we go into the math again. Math. Everything is math, unfortunately. So it's a 3. So half of 3 is 1.5. So the students by now should know that from here to here is 1 inch, and in between any of the spaces you have another space centered, and that's your half. So I'm going to line up my half, and another way you can tell is the half point is that this little line here is longer than the other 10 or other 9, whatever it is in there. So now I line up, and I also, before I forget, as I was doing this here, you want to make sure that your ruler is parallel, ¿verdad? As you're going on visually. For example, here, I'm lining up my ruler, but at the same time, I'm paying attention to the ruler and the edge of my papers here, that they're visually in line. Because if they're not, if I go like this, well, it's going to lose measurement because we're going off in an angle now. We want to keep it at a 90-degree angle vertical as best as possible. Make a point at the edge of my ruler. So it's at the beginning, 1, 2, 3, or from the center down, a half. Now, I measure the distance between here and here to the bottom, from this one to this one. And I know it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 centimeters, and 2 small little lines, which are your millimeters. So I line up with the 2 little dots, go to the edge, line up, find my dot, put your pencil up as high as evenly as possible vertically. Now I can just go ahead and do my other 3 from the bottom up. Match this 2 here. Keep your pencil up as straight as possible, and there we are. 3, 3, 3. Now we're going to, and another thing I want you to notice is, since I'm drawing these lines horizontally, my ruler is going to be vertical. Now I'm going to do vertical lines, and now my ruler is going to be horizontal. Now let me show all of you here where I don't have to be moving my ruler, and the work will go faster. I'm going to line up, I'm going to turn it around so I can see my measurements. So I can go 3 here, then line up over here. I look, it's off. I can bring it in some. It's 26, 25, 24, 23. Make it here. Then I can measure between my two dots here, or I can go here at the bottom. Since I already have this center measurement, I can go here, and I see that it's 13 exactly. Wow, pretty good. So I can go and set this at 13, which is the center of this here, and I can go 1.5 to one side and 1.5 to one side. So I can go, here's half and 1, half and 1. You see? Or I could have capped it there and then go 1 and half, 1 and half. It's the same thing. Now I have to find this one here. So again, I go half, half and 1, half and 1. Now I'm going to make my vertical line segments for the center space. And again, I don't like to see getting our hands dirty, so try to keep them as clean as possible. We have already done the 2 there, the 2 3-centimeter dots. Let's go here to the bottom. We go now, we take it back to simple measurements and moving my ruler around, and I go ahead and do it at 3. Now I can line up my 3s, and I don't have to do the center one because I can do it from this to the bottom and the top one. Here we go. There you go. 1, 2, 3. And this is where you can use math again. If you have 3 going vertically and 3 going horizontal, how many square boxes or squares do I have? Well, 3 and 3. 3 times 3 is 9. Without having to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. No. Okay? So now we're going to erase. And I want all of you, again, this is a lesson, to mark these lines here. Well, not lines, line segments. Notice. And I'm going to erase from this point to this point, this point to this point. It's going to be the same thing going down. Another thing I'd like for you to know is that you put your fingers here and make sure they're clean. And I'm going to erase away. Now you should have an easier erasing process because your lines are lighter, mine are darker. So we don't want to leave pencil marks behind. So put in pressure, and I'm going away from my fingers. And you say, well, why? Well, because if I go back and forth, you might see me going, but I'm not touching it when I'm going back. I'm not touching the paper. I'm just erasing away from my fingers, lifting my eraser up. Okay, so we do it all the way across. There you go. And now I can clean up. Okay, now what we're going to do next to make it easier drawing the lines and you understand where I'm going and coming. This is going to be our major point right here. That's going to be our major point. Our vanishing point is going to be our major point. I want you also to keep in mind that all these squares are solid, like this eraser. If I place my pencil behind it, I can't see it. Okay, but I know it's there because I saw you put it there. And then it can go across, and I know that the pencil is going across, but I don't see it because this is solid. So these are solid. Another thing that I want you to keep in mind is that when we have a vanishing point, so you have a line coming, you don't draw inside because again it's solid. We're gonna stop when we hit this because again all of these lines that come and unite are gonna be in the back. We don't see it behind there. We could draw them, but we're gonna have to erase them. So I'm going to label for easiness is A, everybody. A, B, C, and D. A, B, C, and D. Lightly. A, B, C, D. A, B, C, D. A, B, C, D. And you got the hang of it, okay? We're going to do the same thing with all of them. And we want to keep our order. Again, for those of us that are in the advanced, you don't have to do this, but for my students right now, yes, because we want to. It is learning a discipline, okay? A discipline. Okay. Now we take my ruler, vanishing point. I want all of us to place our pencil on our vanishing point, put a little pressure, not too much, and I'm going to draw like the radar. I'm going to take it like a radar going around so I hopefully don't miss any corners. So any corner that's facing the vanishing point, we draw a line. So here we go. I draw my line. Keep your pencil up as straight as possible. I hit something, I stop. You're done. Then I go back to the vanishing point. I line up with the A. I draw it inside. No, because it would be inside the square. We don't want it. Well, let's look at the D. We draw the D. Yes, there's nothing there. I draw it. I hit something. Stop. Go to the next one. B. Line up. Draw it. Stop. Okay. Now I look at the top one here. The first one is the C. I go ahead and line up. Nothing in the way. No. I hit something. Stop. I go to A. Do I draw the A here? No, because it would be inside. Do I draw B? No, because it would be inside. I would draw D. Remember, these are solid objects. Vanishing point. Now this is going to be the mirror image over here, but now we're going to start with A point. Look for A. Draw my line. Put pressure on your ruler. Bring it. There. Stop. Vanishing point. Look for C. Yes, there's nothing in the way for now. So I draw it. Come. Stop. I go to the vanishing point. Do I draw B? No, because I have to draw inside. Now I go D over here. Line up. Draw my line. Yes, nothing in the way. So now in this one's here, we're going to vanishing point. I draw A. No, it's inside. Go to B. Yes. Hit something. Stop. Go to C, no. Go to D, yes. Nothing in the way. Stop. I go and do the same thing over here. Now I go A. Look for A. Okay. Draw my line. Hit something. Stop. Then go to V. Go for B. No, because I will have to draw inside. Do I draw D? No, I will have to draw inside. Do I draw... It's getting tricky here with my hand. I want you guys to see at the same time. VP here and C, yes. I start. Now let me say another thing about the vanishing point dot, or any dot, any intersection. Keep them as small as possible because they do develop dimension. And you see now this is getting a little thicker there. We don't want to do that because we don't want to lose our center. Vanishing point, A, intersection, draw a line, yes, hit something, stop, go to the next one, B, yes, start, hit something, stop, go to vanishing point, D, yes, hit something, stop, C, no, because we will have to draw it inside. Now, I hope you noticed, okay, that we're not doing anything to this square, even though it's in the center. If we could see through it, if it was clear, we would be drawing from these corners in. Okay? But we're not because it's solid. So now I go ahead and go to the vanishing point again. And now I got the hang of it. And I don't have to go to the other points. I know that it's from A to the vanishing point, from B to the vanishing point. Stop. I go from C to the vanishing point. Line up. Draw. There you go, like that. And then I draw to the vanishing point, A, line up, put pressure on my ruler, draw, vanishing point, then B, in this case I'm just gonna put it here so you can see, draw, and I'm done. Now I have squares that have vanishing lines going to the vanishing point and going forever. But we're gonna put a stop to that. It's like this eraser here, for example. This eraser here, let's say this is on top here, we can see only the top, and then we see the bottom part. But it also stops, okay? So if I have it here, It also see the top, but then I see that it stops. It only has a certain depth. Now, and you can use any depth you want, but for my class, these instructions here, we're going to use 2 centimeters. We're just selecting that 2 because it's easy for us to work with right now. So I'm gonna put a 2 here, a dot there only, somewhere, and then somewhere over here, a dot where I can see it. Now this is where it gets tricky. If I draw this, because what we're going to do now is we're going to draw this depth, but these vertical lines are parallel to each other, okay? Now these ones aren't, because as you can see, they're white here and they get smaller. This ones stay the same. This line that I'm going to draw here, this line that I'm going to draw, this vertical line, is mimicking or is copying the edges of the squares. Okay, so we line up. Then I'm only going to draw a line from B to D. Line up my pencil. Line up with my bottom dot. Oops, you see, you got to be careful. Let me use the other one. That's a real soft. I line up my ruler. This is harder, thicker. Now I'm just going to draw. Let me turn it around so you can see the lines. I'm going to line up. I'm only going to draw a line from B to D. And this one, B to D. This one, B to D. Okay? I'm going to the opposite side. 2 centimeters, the same thing on this one here. For us, 2 centimeters. Mirror image, same technique. But in this case, the line segments are A and C. A and C, A and C, A and C. Now let me show you what would have happened if I could have started at the bottom, but look at the big difference. If I take the same measurement, look what's gonna happen. 2 centimeters here, which is the same as that. 2 centimeters here, which is the same as that going. If I had started at the bottom, look where the intersections now, the line segments would be. Look at that. Could I have started at the bottom? Yes. But we started on the side. Now, when do I start at the bottom? Well, it depends what kind of effect you're looking for. But for our learning purpose, we're really more concerned to see how this affect one another. Well, now what do? How do I get the bottom? Well, we have already have an intersection here with line C and the new ray line going down, and the same thing over here. Okay, so we're gonna line up this, draw my line D to C, D to C, D to C. Then I do the same thing over here, but now my lines are different names. I lined up this intersection, line them up, and again we're copying the horizontal, the horizontal line segments of the box. It's over here in the back. Vertical, vertical, vertical. Well, here we go. So now I'm going to draw A to B, A to B, A to B. And there's my box in perspective. Okay? Now what we're going to do now is we're going to erase a little bit of the line. I'll put it in my finger pressure over here, and I'm trying to go one direction. So I'm trying to get to the edge. And the reason I don't want you to erase the lines all the way back is so that we can remember how we accomplish this effect. It goes to the vanishing point over there. And now we have created the illusion, the magic. These objects can be anything. Buildings, cars, airplanes, and I'll be showing you in other lessons what I'm talking about. So now I think I erased some of it and all of them. Yeah. Again, nothing's happening to the center one because it's solid and all these lines are going inside. Okay? So now we're done with a 1 point perspective. So from up here looking down, and I would be looking down and I could see the tops. Let's say these were buildings and I'm flying over. So this is going to be the bird's view. Bird's view. This here, because I'm standing here, these are my eyes, this is the horizon. The horizon is where the imaginary contact of the sky and the land, when you don't have hills and other objects in the way, in theory, where the sky and the earth meet. That's your horizon line, and the horizon line will always be your eye level. Your eye level. So that's bird's eye view. This is going to be at this here eye level or eye view. Let's put it eye level. And this is worms. The little worm crawling on the ground looking up. He's gonna see all of this up here underneath, all this stuff to the sides. Worm's view. Could be worm's eye view, worm's view, depending. Okay, so now we have our vanishing point, 1 point vanishing point assignment done. Pretty good. Then you can erase your letters, the alphabetical letters there, and we could erase the center here, but I'm gonna leave it there. And then we're gonna come back and we're going to add hues. Colors. What kind of colors? We're going to work with the primaries. Okay, let me write it down here. We're going to work with the primary colors. Primary, secondary colors. But that's another lesson. Okay? Well, I hope that we have learned something, and I hope if you can practice and use this idea here to experiment. You can move your boxes around. You don't have to put them in the corner, and use your vanishing point and see what you can do. If you use your imagination, we could say we're flying over in a plane over here. We're flying over in a plane, and we're looking down on buildings, where this is the top of our buildings and they're going down if we kept all that. So use your imagination, move your buildings, your squares around, and then set your vanishing point, or move your vanishing point anywhere you want, and experiment. Have fun with it. It's a lot of fun. Well, I hope we learned something, and we will be seeing you on the next one, where we will study a little bit of colors, about colors, so that we can start applying them. So have a good day. And be careful.